We're back with our webinars. Um, as we normally start these sessions, I'd like to start from um, a verse of the Quran. We are looking at chapter 4. This is chapter 4, verse 35 of the Quran. Um, I'm going to read it out here. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ, if you fear shiqaqa, which is dissension. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ شِقَاقَ بَيْنَهَا, if you fear dissension between the two, uh, فَبُصُّهَا حُكَامًا, send an arbiter, مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحِكَامًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا, send an arbiter or send a judge between him, his people, and send an arbiter from her people, من أهلها. إن يريد إصلاحا يوفق الله بينهما. If they both, if they both desire, and see how, it says both of them need to be there to desire reconciliation. Islaha yufiq Allahu bainahuma. God will enable that between them. God will enable reconciliation. In Allah kana aliman khabira. Truly, verily, God is all knowing and all aware. So we have this verse in Surah An-Nisa, which is the chapter of women. And over here, a lot of people say, why do we need mediation, or why do we need, um, especially in families, why do we need to bring other people in? And what is why, can't people resolve things on their own? Why are we bringing people in for that? And this is a clear verse from the Quran, which is encouraging mediation. It is encouraging that you're bringing sort of a representative of an arbiter between these people so that they're able to reach reconciliation. And it's also normalizing the fact that, yes, families do go through, couples do go through um, difficulties, and we do need mediation. So more of that in obviously in the webinar that we'll be discussing today is family healing and techniques on how to do that. But I thought I mentioned this verse as a precursor to some of the discussions that we're having. If you're new to us and you're joining us for the first time, um, we have these projects. Um, we provide a free 15-minute consultation for absolutely everyone. That is everyone. This is sometimes people say that Muslims only. No, this is absolutely anyone who might be struggling with sexual or gender identity. We are a peer support organization which helps people find resources. We have actually vacancies in the online Zoom groups that we have been running. We've been running these groups for um, 5, 6 years now. We have a really good volunteer group which lead these on Mondays and Wednesdays. We have our men's group. We have a new group which is just about to open, the women's circle, which will open very soon. And then also we have a group tomorrow, which is the Arabic circle on Sundays for people um, in the Middle East and Arab countries region. I also provide one-to-one coaching. This is a discounted service of coaching, which I provide on Wednesday and Friday evenings. Um, we have also offered training for mosques or other organizations on this issue. And one of the outreaches that we do is we offer webinars, which are absolutely free. They're accessible on YouTube. Obviously, this one is being live streamed as well. So it's that kind of way that we give out to the community. Um, Another project which I'm really, really happy to announce, and this is kind of something that we've been doing for a while. And actually, we've been this workshop that we deliver, we do it with the Christian community. So both the Christian and Muslim community, we come together on this is the Journey into Manhood shop, which we're doing in Egypt. So this coming February, we have a few spaces left because every year we have a waiting list because it's part of the region which is close to my heart. It's close to a lot of people's hearts in delivering workshops. So this is meant for men who struggle with same-sex attraction. Um, there is sponsorship packages that we also provide available for those who can't afford the workshop. The workshop itself is entirely volunteer driven. So these are the staff who come on this workshop are individuals who actually gone through the workshop themselves, want to give back the experience, and especially the senior staffers are people who have done a lot of work in their lives and they've reached to a really great stage where they're able to mentor other people. So I think um, if you're looking for a community or a sense of belonging and you're a man and you struggle with um, sexual identity, then I think this workshop is definitely for you. We've been successfully running it for 3 years. The past 2 years has been in Egypt. And yeah, it's definitely changed my life when I did it. Um, quite a few years ago. And I'm so blessed that we can now bring it into the Middle East and in that region. I now want to move on to the main topic of our webinar. Um, I'm so excited by Philippe David Schanker is a coach, counselor, and educator. Has a vast I was just going through his biography, and there were so much in terms of pastoral care, marriage and family guidance, and then most recently, working with Path um, on teaching around relationships and sexuality. He served years in the unification movement in US. He's been a pastor and also vice president. Um, Today, when he joins us in the capacity of a counselor and a coach who serve clients internationally. I've heard his name from the community that we work in, I'm sure, and I'm sure some of you have joined today who know him. Um, and he speaks regularly on trauma, shame, and relationship. Obviously, today we will cover a little bit about uh, attachment, a little bit about layers, and I'm really excited to get into that today. He's also the author of Family Matching Handbook as well. But one of the accolades, if you like, and actually this book was probably one of the first books which I ever got, you know. I don't think they sell this anymore because it's not, it's changed. So if you want to get this, it's called Being Gay now. So you can still get this book. It's just been retitled. But this was one of my first ever books, which I had read. Um, and I noticed, and I didn't know at that time who this person was. Um, in the acknowledgements, Richard mentions Philippe. Um, so he mentions five names here: Philippe, Peter, Russell, Steve, and Gordon, all men who don't have same-sex attraction. These are men who are opposite-sex attracted, but were healing to Richard in his journey. And I know that Philippe has known Richard for over 43 years in a remarkable friendship. Whenever I speak to Richard, he speaks very highly of Philippe. And um, Richard connected us when I said, "Oh, this family healing session thing, we really need to understand this. It sounds really, really interesting." So it's an absolute honor and a pleasure that we have Philippe with us today. Um, as I said, he's a PATH certified therapist. Uh, if you don't know, it's Positive Approaches to Healthy Sexuality, pathinfo.org. If you want to find out more about the family healing sessions, obviously after you can speak to Philippe, you can go find a little bit more on the website, but obviously this webinar is catered for that very question. And yes, without further ado, I'd like to welcome and introduce Philippe. Hi, Philippe.
Good afternoon. Good morning for me. Good afternoon for you. Good evening for maybe some others on the webinar. It's for me an honor and a joy to have this opportunity, not only to share with those who are present today, but to have it recorded and available in the future for uh, people on the path or for their family and loved ones. And I have so much respect and appreciation for the work of strong support, carving out a safe space for men and women walking a difficult journey and wrestling with feelings, thoughts, etc., that are in conflict with the expectations of the culture, of their families and people that love them, and struggling with the conflict with their own inner values and trying to find a way. So the work you guys do really moves me, and I'm so honored and grateful to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that blessing, and similarly back at you. I know Philippe has been in this work for much longer than I have, years and years of hard toil. And we were just discussing earlier when we were starting. Sometimes when you know the topic really well, it's difficult to sometimes shorten, and I'm like that as well because it's like when it's your expertise, it's um, how I'm sure you could talk for a huge time in terms of your depth of this topic, and we're very lucky to have you. And that's why I do ask the attendees, do write your Q&A throughout the workshop. We will go through them. There's a Q&A um, um, if you're joining on Zoom, there's a Q&A button that you can go in. You can write anonymously. Just know that this is being recorded and live streamed, so you can choose to write a question anonymously. If you're comfortable with speaking and your name being shared, then you can raise your hand and do that at the end as well. Just know that the questions itself are, and the name would be shown, and they're shown. If you want to speak later, then that is possible as well. We can share emails. And if you want to ask questions privately as well, then that's completely fine as well. But yes, without further ado, I'd give over to Philippe.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, I do have a lot to say. Those among my clients or people that I've worked with who are active in strong support will know that our sessions are long because they need to be heard, but also I have a lot to say. So I'll do my very best to share this information in a timely fashion and to go deep enough that it will make everything relevant. And I think my strongest qualification is simply that I spent 40 plus years in spiritual life, spiritual community, interreligious dialogue, years in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, that my training is beyond one narrow perspective, but that my therapeutic work is grounded in an understanding of the purpose of our creation, the reason we're here, and the ultimate, eternal destiny of human beings and the common values that we share. So with that, I'm just going to jump in. Okay. Let me share this presentation. Where am I? Here I am. Oh, little technically challenged all of a sudden. I don't know why, but here it comes. Here we go. Is my presentation visible, Ali?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, great. So we're going to jump right in. And I just want to activate my pointer. Okay, there we go. Thanks again, everyone, for your presence and for those listening in the future. I want to talk about the family healing session and the power and value of this experience for individuals and to renew relationships. I want to begin with Farid's story. And please don't try to figure out who this is because, of course, the names have been changed. The name has been changed, but this is an actual experience in therapy. Now, Farid is a young man who grew up in the Middle East and faced the need to be, it was some refugee status and moving from country to country, dealing with political crises and violence and oppression and terrorism, etc., together with his mother. And they formed a strong and close bond. And I know her as well through our work together. They formed a strong and close bond. Out of that was the anxiety shared and her journey and her past. And I always thought it was interesting that his mom used to told me about when her father would have a certain look on his face. She always knew the look, and she would have such a strong internal reaction because she felt disapproval. And Farid actually told me the very same thing about his experience with his mother. So you could see the way in which sometimes habits, patterns, emotional ways of dealing with relationships, family patterns can continue. Now, Dad was very much connected and responsible, but Dad spent Farid's early years in a Western country working to support the family, so wasn't emotionally involved in Farid's early life. Later, when the family emigrated to that Western country and Farid experienced a lot of bullying and rejection, issues with his body, issues with his attractions, questions about his sexual identity, and the more that he was wrestling with these issues, the more alienated he felt from mom and dad. And they, of course, being sincere and loving parents, but at the same time raised in a traditional way. My generation, the authority of the parents, dad is often involved outside the home, mom is taking care of the emotional world of the home, and dad is not so involved. With that kind of background, it was difficult for his parents and their Muslim values, difficult for them to understand their son's struggle. And so he became detached and disconnected and alienated. After some months of working with him and then beginning to meet with an educator and dad, I visited them in their city. I spent a weekend, did a family healing session, and it allowed the communication process to change. It encouraged the parents to create a safe, loving space, to find the balance point between being true to your values and being unconditional with your children. That's a very challenging place. And this is what the dad said afterward. We discovered that the wounds of my son, who is detached from the family, are stemming from my and my wife's wounds. I was skeptical about the healing session in the beginning, but I must admit that my doubts were completely wrong. The morning after the session, my family woke up with new hearts. Everything looked different. My son, who used to avoid us, is now spending more time with us. The way we communicate with each other has greatly improved. We now validate each other's feelings. We know how to talk to each other in a positive way without hurting each other. It's a work in progress, but the healing session helped us to put our feet on the right path to heal and grow as a family.
Wow, it's amazing.
And in case you think that's just a mountaintop experience and it went right back to the same issue, of course, struggles continue, challenges, learning, growing. But I'm very in touch with the family. I'm still working with Farid. His mindset about the possibility of changing his heart and not worrying as much about being accepted and validated outside, but growing strength within him because of the closer bond with his family. It really made lasting changes in their experience. So what is a family healing session? It's a breakthrough model in family therapy. It takes place over 2 days, the length depending on the number of family members and relationships that we're going to work with. It's an opportunity for every individual to get renewal emotionally and spiritually, to reset relationships. And if they are detached, estranged, angry, or hurt, to reattach in a healthy way. It's like a restart for the whole family. And many have said that it has the impact of a year of therapy for each family member and for every relationship. So I want to talk first a little bit about attachment because, what it is, why it's important, how we get wounded, because I want everyone who sees this webinar to relate to it on a personal level and understand the power and value of the family healing session, which is what I'll talk about in the later portion. Now, of course, from a spiritual perspective, the family is a divinely inspired, rooted in the scriptures, the school of love. Being loved unconditionally by parents is the foundation of self-worth. Learning to give and receive with siblings, realizing I'm not the center of the universe, having a larger center, developing the ability to be intimate and faithful and committed in relationships, and then becoming one who loves unconditionally as a parent and feels that there are people more important than myself. So it's from a spiritual standpoint, it's the foundation of civilization. But today, we're going to talk about attachment and relationships. I want to talk about them from a psychological, emotional, historical, and even evolutionary perspective. So what is attachment? It's an emotional bond with a caregiver that provides protection and safety and is the key to survival. And in human beings, even more deeply, it's the foundation of our self-identity, our self-worth, and healthy emotional development. Now, actually, there we go. From an evolutionary standpoint, attachment was never an issue up until reptiles, right? Reptile parents will lay hundreds of eggs. Most of them are eaten by predators, and the few that survive, continue the species. The offspring wakes up or is born, or arrives, parents are long gone. There's no relationship, emotion, connection, attachment, protection, or safety. But once you reach the bird and animal kingdom and mammals, you start to see the development of protective instincts and emotional bonds and attachment and love. And there's just a million stories I could go into. But for the mammal kingdom and the animal kingdom, and for our ancestors, attachment was survival, and lack of attachment, being alone, was death. So it's an extremely powerful urge and desire that's factory installed in every child. But human beings are born the most vulnerable of any creature that we know on earth, and require the longest time of nurturing, protection, and development and encouragement. Horses, foals are born and they're walking within 4 hours of birth. Birds are leaving the nest within 2 weeks. But human beings need years and years of education, socialization, encouragement, validation, learning, support, etc. Now, attachment theory developed from John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth and some other developmental psychologists and researchers by observing infants, human infants around the age of 1 or 2. And in the process, they recognized particular styles of attachment. They noticed that about half, a little more than half, of the children, when put in situations with strangers, or the mom leaving the room, or this or that kind of test, they noticed that a little more than half seemed to have some degree of confidence, self-worth, accepting, encouragement, and support, while the others often expressed a more anxious style of attachment, clingy, emotional, insecure, needing reassurance, overly worrying about the presence or absence of the parent. And then there were also those that were avoidant, seeming to disconnect emotionally, becoming distant, pushing down their feelings, avoiding closeness. And then there were those who had a little bit of both and seemed to have a push, pull, intense, struggling, emotional, reactive, and unpredictable. Now, this is a basic understanding that I'm going to go into a little bit more deeply. I wanted to show everyone one of the most famous attachment experiments called the still face experiment, but it's a little difficult to convey on Zoom. So don't go there now during the webinar, but I want everybody who listens or sees this webinar to visit the internet. It's a 2.5-minute video to see what happened during this experiment run by Ed Tronick from Harvard University. You'll see that in a period of 1 minute, Ali, when a mother stops responding to a 1-year-old child for 1 minute, within 1 minute, you'll see the roots of every kind of coping strategy you could imagine. Longing for attention, trying to get the mom's attention, trying to please and be cute, then rejecting, detaching, turning away. I don't want that. Looking elsewhere. And then you'll see negative feelings and uncomfortable, and ultimately just breaking down completely within a minute. And maybe in the audience, people will say, well, that's a little baby. Babies they need a lot of care and attention. But imagine a lifetime where your needs are not recognized, your voice is not heard, or where a relationship is emotionally uncomfortable. I want to talk about this by presenting what I consider one of the most simple and profound understandings of attachment, of wounding, and of how we deal with the world. Because these attachment styles are, in fact, adaptive behaviors and coping strategies to deal with a world that isn't always safe and isn't always loving. So I want to talk about the layers of our personality. And I consider this one of the most profound understandings in all of psychotherapy. Each and every one of us has an authentic, loving, and true God-given self, a divine self. but we also wrestle with contradictions within us. And these contradictions I call the inherited self because we absorb them from the environment. We develop them learning to deal with difficulties in the world around us. We develop them dealing with our own parents who love us the best they can, but have their own impurities, insecurities, and coping strategies for managing relationships. And we even inherit them from unresolved patterns, which is also scriptural if you look carefully. Now, because we have authentic self, we each have the capacity for love, understanding, and forgiveness. And every child, from the moment they're born, is seeking that from their caregivers. Look to parents. The younger you are, the more we look at parents as ideal, absolute. We want to model our behavior after them. We want to ask them every question we can think of, and we want their connection, protection, and safety. But no parents are perfect. And therefore, no one escapes childhood without some degree of attachment wounding. And I'm going to divide attachment wounds into categories. The wounds of detachment, neglect and abandonment, and the wounds of too close or unhealthy attachment, abuse, or enmeshment. Now, looking at detachment, this would, of course, take place if a child is literally abandoned by parents, or parents are drug addicted or unable to function in that role, or the state comes, the government takes the child out of the home, or orphaned, etc. But this can also happen when a parent dies and a child feels abandoned, or when parents divorce or separate, a child grows up with one and detached from the other. Or it can happen when there are multiple families and perhaps one family or one spouse is favored and the others are not. And therefore, there's a feeling of less love. It can also take place when a parent, like in Farid's case, is physically not present during the crucial years of development and not available to attach to and to welcome that child into the parent's world and the world of their gender identity. But it can also happen when a parent is physically present, but emotionally unavailable, emotionally disconnected. Their own coping strategy having been withdraw, push down my feelings, I must obey, I must respect. So there are lots of situations like that. Now, on the other hand, when we talk about unhealthy attachment, this would, of course, happen if there's verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, or sexual abuse, for sure. But this can also take place in a subtle, consistent way in what we now call complex trauma, not the obvious explosions that take place of traumatic events, but the quiet, like a thousand cuts to the that take place in day-to-day life. A parent who is overly critical, a parent who is authoritarian and leaves no space for the child to feel heard, a parent who is angry and explosive and unstable and will at sometimes blame or shame the child, or a parent that's emotionally immature and puts their needs on the child, perhaps needs that aren't being fulfilled in the marital relationship become given to or laid upon the children. The children become spouseified or parentified, and often it blurs the boundaries until a child doesn't know where I end and where mom begins, for example. Now, the first reaction to being in that kind of unhealthy situation is fear. The child has no idea. Nobody's telling him that this is not the way it's supposed to be. This is the way the world is. But fear is there because it's scary to be alone. It's scary to be, remember, detachment is death to our ancestors, right? And it's also not particularly comfortable to be with someone who's angry or blaming or unstable, or a situation or a family of conflict that's like a war zone. And so there's that kind of trauma. But because children are born in a way, narcissistic, understanding that I'm the center of everything. It even begins by not knowing there's another when a baby comes out of the womb. And so, together with fear, because children don't know that this is not, they don't want to think my caregivers are flawed. Often, together with fear comes guilt and shame, because children feel responsible. Why am I not being paid attention to? Why is there no space? Why do I have to? Why can't I be emotional, or I'll be punished, or anger will come, or I'll be, a bad Catholic or a bad kid, or why? It must be me. It must be, I must deserve this treatment. Children, it's been shown that children will choose shame before wanting to question their caregivers. And therefore we can grow with a life of feeling all of this is my fault. I'm the flawed one. I'm the bad one. Now, if that can be expressed and heard and validated, if there's some caregiver or adult or elder that can hear and allow the child to pour out those feelings, they can be resolved and released. Like a kid learning to ride a bike who falls down and scratches and is crying, but mom or dad picks him up, a little antiseptic, a little encouragement, he's back on the bike. But sadly, for most children, there's no place. There's no one. They can't stand up for themselves. They can't run away. Many kids try, but therefore, what happens? What will arise is frustration and anger internally. And it can be frustration with myself, blame to myself. It can be anger at authority. And you'll see by the time the child is in early adolescence, there's a defensive detachment and pushing the parents away. I don't want anything to do with you. I want to live in the world of my friends. I slam the door. I get angry. But underneath that frustration and anger always is hurt, pain, and fear. It's the same if you cornered an animal who was wounded. The animal would present with threat and anger, but underneath is fear and pain. Now, growing up in that situation and then entering the social world of a young person, we start to develop all kinds of strategies to be safe and loved. And we'll develop habits and patterns that we say, oh, I'm just that kind of person, but they aren't authentic. They are ways of being safe or loved, becoming a pleaser, a performer, a clown, looking for attention in the place of love, bragging, being superior, showing off, or trying to get sympathy by being a victim, or trying to be nice to everyone so that they'll love me. Or some children will be more avoidant, using the avoidant attachment style and become angry, sarcastic, become the rebel, the loner, the fake, afraid to show who I truly am to other people, because if they knew me, they wouldn't love me. Now, the needy person may turn into a caretaker, trying to live to emotionally take care of everyone else. Of course, it's a beautiful desire, but there'll be self-neglect in the process of becoming the savior, the protector, the caretaker of other people. Or the withdrawing person will go even further, go up into my head, far away from my feelings, become the critic, feel superior, become self-righteous. And religious people can easily fall into that trap. But all the time inside, there's a feeling that my value only comes from what I do, human doing, rather than human being. So that an inner pusher, an inner perfectionist, if I don't perform, I won't be loved. These are some of the coping strategies that I'm sure everyone who's watching can identify with this, not only in themselves, but in siblings, in the people in their environment, in some of their best friends. Now, we do these things. These are adaptive behaviors. They're coping strategies, and they are not our authentic self. They're the masks that we wear to cover who we are. They are the way of trying to be safe, and they are the substitutes for love. And this is what we call the ego when we talk about it in an unhealthy sense. A person who doesn't feel their value on the inside isn't connected to a greater source of find value, and therefore is constantly trying to validate their worth by what they own, who they control, who they have on their arm, their physical features or their talents or ability, trying to find value in these ways. The ego is just the wounded self that doesn't feel its value on the inside. Now, we do these things, Ali and everyone, to be safe and loved. But in fact, in the process, we lose connection with who we truly are. We lose our sense of authenticity and we get lost. What am I doing? Who am I trying to please? Why am I in this place in my life? What am I alive for? Where am I going? These are the kinds of experiences. And with time, if we aren't able to resolve these emotional struggles on the inside, they will affect us physically, emotionally, and even our mental health. So, for example, growing up in an unsafe environment or dealing with unprocessed fear can make us prone to anxiety, stress, channeling our fears into unreasonable phobias, or being overwhelmed by the hormones of stress, cortisol and adrenaline, and having panic attacks and a panic disorder. Or we can go the other way and try to detach and avoid and withdraw from feelings by numbing those feelings or medicating those feelings. And we all know that often substances are the way of escape or medicating hurts. But the most common ways people do it is with food or sex, right? Because they're so accessible. So we try to meet the desire for happiness, connection, belonging, which is a deep feeling of contentment that lasts in the soul. And we try to fill those places with body-based, pleasure-based, temporary experiences which don't last through food, sex, or substances. But we can even become dependent upon the chemicals of our emotions. We can become a rageaholic. We can become addicted to depression. We can become addicted to this way of looking at the world. We can get addicted to work or working out. And now with social media and online games, there's all kinds of ways of pushing the pleasure button, scrolling on TikTok that turns into hours because there's some kind of stimulation, some kind of dopamine, some kind of reward and feeling of connection, even by likes on Facebook. But these are imitations of what we seek deep in our soul that lasts. Now, mental health as well. Every common mental health struggle, depression, which is literally connected to having had to depress my emotions. Stop crying, be a man, don't be a baby, right? Or if you do that, you're a bad kid, and our parents treat us differently. And so we learn that it's not safe to express how we feel. And what is suicide except the ultimate withdrawal, the ultimate desire to escape or detach or disconnect? And every single common mental health issue has roots in our attachment experience. And we already know that 70% of disease, at least, is connected to a history of trauma or overwhelming stress or anxiety that's already been established in the medical profession. And of course, our attachment wounds and styles as children shape our relationship as adults. So whether we can't attach to a partner and we think divorce solves the problem, but then the pattern continues in every relationship until we heal the wounds underneath. Or think trying to find comfort in sexual affairs, feeling lonely in the midst of a marriage or family, being afraid of commitment and love, or all of the anger and hatred and prejudice and resentment that we carry toward the other. All of these are expressions of the struggle of attachment wounding. So I hope that makes sense. But my conclusion is simply that all of life's major challenges have roots in our attachment experience. what happens to us during our formative years when we're vulnerable and dependent on our caregivers, any unmet emotional needs, any unhealed emotional wounds will impact us. The hurts in the heart, whether obvious and explosive or quiet and complex, will impact us in 5 major areas. First, our inner emotional health will struggle perhaps with self-esteem or confidence, or wrestle with constant shame, insecurity, and need to be inauthentic in order to deal with life using coping strategies. And then what human beings have learned to do is to medicate those hurts or channel those needs into pleasure-based compulsive behavior. And so whether it's food or sex or alcohol or drugs, as I've said, or social media or online games, we'll find alternative ways of trying to meet needs or comfort wounds. The third area, as I said, is it will affect all of our attachment experiences, our relationship health, whether we're lonely and detached, anxious and needy, controlling or codependent. The fourth area, our physical health, because emotions go into the body in the form of hormones and neuropeptides. They go right into the body and will impact long-term our digestive system, our immune system, our coronary arteries, our heart, and a tendency to inflammation and chronic illnesses. All of these can be linked to emotions and stress because emotions go into the body. And this is one of the major lessons I learned in the last 12 years as a therapist, that even mental health issues are not just brain-based and hereditary, but they have roots in our attachment experience. An overactive stress response, the tendency to push down my feelings until the whole world becomes gray. Attention deficit disorder is 7 times more likely when a child grows up in an unhealthy, traumatic, or detached situation, because it's a way of coping with the world to disconnect from a traumatic environment. So if this makes sense to you, I hope that the value of the family healing session can be a little more poignant, because that's what I want to spend the rest of the time talking about. Okay, and I appreciate your patience with me in these what I think are crucial understandings. So how did the family healing session come about? Let me first briefly share with you David's story. He was already living on his own, living with his girlfriend, detached from his angry father who didn't like, had religious expectations and was disapproving of his son's life. And so when, for the sake of one of David's younger sisters, when we brought together a family healing session, he simply said, I am no part of it. I don't want to go there. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want anything to do with dad. I don't want to be part of this family. But his sisters reached out to him because they had issues that they wanted to resolve with him from their childhood. And they begged him to come. So he said, okay, I'm coming for them. I'll be accountable to them. I'll do whatever they need me to do, but I'm not opening up. I'm not talking about my journey. I'm not dealing with my relationships. But by the end of that weekend, the family was surrounding him in their embrace, his sisters, his other brother, and even the parents. And he opened up his heart on the second day and shared his journey. He reconciled with his dad. And by the end of that session, they were arm in arm on the couch, in tears, planning a hiking vacation. And his father, who's now a good friend of mine, said to me after, "You gave me back my son." So what is the family healing session and how does it make those things possible? The developer of the concept that led to the family healing session was Dr. Martha Welch, a psychiatrist, psychologist, and researcher at Columbia University working in child development. Now, she wrote a groundbreaking book in the 1990s called Holding Time, emphasizing the power of physical touch and reattachment to the mother to deal with dysregulated, difficult behavior. She developed a technique and introduced it in her book called direct synchronous bonding. And she worked with the most difficult and dysregulated children, including working with autistic children who were disconnected, acting out, unable, rejecting parents, tantrums, and often unexplainable behaviors. She emphasized the mother-child bond, didn't focus so much on dad, but emphasized the importance of re-establishing a healthy and safe mother-child bond using intense physical touch, prolonged holding time, strong and consistent eye contact, creating the space for the child to express feelings, whether positive or negative, without judgment, accepting and validating those feelings without judgment, and also the parent being able to express their authentic feelings, whether positive or negative, and having the satisfying experience of a physical closeness and connection, to insist on that aspect. And out of that, out of her experience came the idea of popping the cork, like a cork on a bottle. The fears, the anger, the negative feelings, the unmet needs need to be popped so that all of the authentic feelings and natural desire for the child to love and devote to their parents and trust will be able to be released. And she achieved powerful results, creating renewed and loving connection. Now, in the process, she understood that the barriers to healthy attachment and the causes of detachment are emotional hurt in the child, fear in the child, anger in the child toward themselves or toward caregivers and others, and all of the unmet needs and doubts and questions and fears that remain inside. And she learned clearly that an angry, withdrawn, dysregulated child with negative behavior is a detached child. And no amount of talking or reasoning or logic or defending or explaining or getting angry or punishing, scolding, all of these things by themselves will not address a child's inner dysregulation and discomfort. Underneath the anger is hurt and pain. And the direct synchronous bonding process is a high intensity communication that even when confronting and their struggle can cause a breakthrough and re-regulate the child and reattach the relationship. And the emphasis, as I said, was intense physical touch, strong eye contact, and creating the space to hear and validate the child's negative emotions instead of shaming them, blaming them, punishing them. And when the needs of both parent and child are met, and that's very big in the family healing session, that each gets to express what they've been through, how they feel, etc. But when the needs of both parent and child can be met, then synchrony and oneness can occur, and an emotional release and healing and breakthrough. So popping the cork, as I said, is simply the understanding that the hurt, the anger, the fear, the doubts, the unmet needs are blocking all of the natural desire in the child, like balsamic vinegar, right? The bitter parts are at the top and all the good stuff is at the bottom, right? That they can be released through this emotionally powerful experience. That's the concept that she developed of popping the cork. Now, Richard Cohen, the founder of PATH and my mentor in many ways, created and developed the family healing session over a period of years, beginning the Cohen family had direct synchronous bonding sessions with Dr. Welch, extremely intense, extremely intense. And then Cohen trained with Dr. Welch on direct synchronous bonding. And over the years, he adapted the protocol with the help of Hilda Weeman. Some of you may know of the organization Generational Healing, very profound. And she also has done amazing work with parents, right, in support of the work that we are doing. So Generational Healing is a really great organization. And Hilda and Richard together adapted the protocol. And the main changes that they made are to include dads in the bonding process, to moderate the intense and radical kind of physical contact and touch, and moderate that, and not make it forced or confrontational, and to put stronger emphasis on healthy communication. Also, the family healing session works with all the relationships and gives an opportunity to reset and renew all. For example, in a family of 6, there's 15 relationships. Mom and dad is 1, but mom with 4 children is 4 more. Dad with 4 children is 4 more. And then the siblings, etc. So how long the family healing session takes depends on how big is the family, who's attending, and how, but whoever is there, we're working with their relationship if they're willing, if they're ready and willing. And the protocol, I'm not going to explain it in detail. It's better for people to experience it when they arrive. But essentially, it's loving, it's open, it's facilitated and safe. The facilitator protects from it being taken over by anger or dominated by someone who doesn't listen to others, or all of the unhealthy aspects. These are guided, protected in the process. And it includes sharing the deepest, most loving and precious memories, as well as the hurts, disappointments, and painful memories, any regrets or apologies. And all of these are provided opportunities to repair and to reconnect using, psychodynamic techniques, using emotional processing, either right there with everyone supporting, or if we need to take 2 people into a private place and spend some time and give everybody a break, we do what's needed, what arises, and what comes up. And also requests, needs, hopes for the future from each one for that particular relationship. It takes place over 2 days, typically. And as I said, it's usually a weekend, but it can be whatever 2 days create availability. It's normally held locally, right in the home of the parents or one of the kids, where everybody gathers, or they sometimes rent a retreat site or have even traveled to see me and do it in the area of the facilitator, if that's preferred. There's a lot of prior preparation, particularly for mom and dad, how to understand and prepare to create the space for their children to express, their adult children to express complicated feelings, hurts, angers, whatever, because it's easy to become defensive. It's easy to blame. It's easy to lose temper and walk out. So there's a lot of internal preparation for the parents to understand how they can create the best journey for their family. There are questionnaires for all participants and genograms to look at the lineage of dad and mom, 4 generations, including the kids. There's a pre-orientation for all participants. And as I said, genograms allow the facilitator to understand trauma and historical patterns in 4 generations of 2 families' history, so that the facilitator is well prepared to understand what are the issues, the challenges, and difficulties going on. Then the weekend takes place, and there's a follow-up session 30 to 40 days later, where people check emotionally, share what's been going on, how things are doing, review their homework, because homework is created out of the requests and goals that each person shares in each relationship. So we review their progress and make adjustments as needed. So lastly, again, I won't tell you the detail of the family healing session content, but know that it begins with a emotionally opening and warm-up process and connecting process. Mom and dad's story, mom, each one individually, how their journey in life, especially things their kids may not know, how their journey in life made them the person, the partner, and the parent that they are and have been. And then we process that relationship first and set the example for everyone. So it's challenging, but it gives the children permission, the more authentic mom and dad can be. And it's not easy based upon the way parents of my generation have been raised in our traditional cultures. We didn't feel free to express these things to our parents. We didn't feel free to be open like this. But mom and dad's example kind of gives permission and opens the heart and possibility for each son and daughter. So when each parent processes each relationship with each adult or young adult son or daughter, and each sibling relationship, and there are other activities involved. There's emotional processing as needed, using role play or psychodrama or bioenergetics or anger work or parts work or other somatic tools, individually, together, with the group, depending on what's needed and what's called for in the situation. And there is a good amount of healthy physical touch, but natural, not forced. And there's a strong emphasis on healthy communication, a strong emphasis on learning how to communicate, owning your feelings, speaking for yourself, not using, attacking statements, judging statements, and there's practice and opportunity to apply it. And the homework can be individual. Someone needs to work on something that is in them that came out. And we have books to read, we have programs to recommend, or there's relational homework to recover a relationship, whether that's regular communication or some experiences together, and there's family homework as well. So one of the most interesting things that I'll conclude with about the family healing session is that it often takes place beginning with the struggles of one particular son or daughter, right? I have done some when the struggle was with one of the parents and they were going through difficulty and creating havoc in the family. But often the young adult that's struggling is viewed as the problem child and kind of develops the feeling of like the black sheep of the family, the one who is, going against the grain and making trouble. And the parents often will come to me and say, can you fix my kid? That's kind of like that. Fix my kid and give him back to me when you're done, right? That kind of feeling. But in the process of opening up into a family healing session, that problem child turns out to be the noble child, the one whose sensitivity, the one who's carrying the burdens that maybe his own parents never dealt with in themselves, but he feels them and wrestles with them. That child becomes the basis of an opportunity for the whole family to heal and grow. And my experience is that a family healing session is better and more successful on the foundation of personal work. That working within myself and healing some of my own wounds, that's a really good place to begin. So those are some of my thoughts, and I'll end there and open it up for sharing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I love how you went through um, especially for an audience who might not be so familiar with attachment, what attachment means, and then the layers. I just love that diagram. I've seen it so many times. I just love it to see how our inner self can be um, lost in so much of the layers of what we went through, and how a lot of this is in the unconscious mind, right? It's just, some of them is just not in it's not in our conscious mind that these things have happened over time, and having a more intense session, which as Dr. Welch initially's goal was to redo the early attachment wound, in her book of um, holding, and how
Mhm.
she describes to do that. And obviously, as you describe, Richard developed that to include the father, which makes a lot of sense, because um, sometimes we think of only the mother as the primary carer. So very welcome type of attachment, especially for males with SSA, and um, yeah, and having that opportunity to share both positive and negative memories in a facilitated space, and seems very, very deep with the genealogy, the homework after, and seems a very intense, in kind of session. Um, how much, and please do feel free to write Q&A. We'll jump on that. But just to start us off, if it's a family, say, if it's just mom and dad and the child, or maybe there is one sibling, um, how long does it normally take? Like if somebody on this webinar was thinking, or they were thinking, oh, I'm thinking
Mhm.
about this, or doing this. You mentioned a weekend, but just curious as to what the schedule looks like in a
Yeah,
sense.
I like good question. Thank you. I do like to bring the family together on a Friday night if possible, but that isn't work. That's
Mm,
more like allowing them to connect with the facilitator, to feel comfortable, getting to just a little bit of sharing, a little bit of warmth. Uh,
mm,
but if the family is not available on the Friday night, then we can start everything on Saturday morning, for example. And then, say, a family of four, mom, dad, and two children. It would be, I typically expect that to wrap up by lunchtime on Sunday.
okay.
Uh, but of course, we can't pre-plan it because depending on what comes up, and also in some cases, one or more family member struggles to open their heart, struggles to share, and that makes the session very quick, and it limits how far we can go, right?
Mm,
I have had experiences where we've been able to do a family healing session in one day, from early morning till late at night, or Friday night and finish by Saturday night. But it's most desirable, but because there's some education, there's some practice, there's some evaluation, there's some homework, it's usually going to go at least until lunchtime or early afternoon on Sunday. Um, and when I say the weekend, we don't, it's the days are intense, but we break for dinner, and the evenings are not, there's no additional work. We want people rested and sharing, and we encourage the young people not to make Saturday night plans outside the home, but maybe sharing with each other, maybe playing a game, maybe just relaxing. So they're intense, but it's breakfast till dinner. And then Sunday normally wraps up in the early or late afternoon. Normal.
mhm. Um, and it's really interesting what you kind of said of um, some members may not be open to so, something in the protocol or something that you're suggesting to do. So there's a question here by an anonymous attendee, and then I'll go to I know there's a hand raised, so we'll go to that next. So the question here is saying, how can we start family healing with an adult child um, that is either no contact or low contact? And I guess that means like in terms of touch, that maybe that it's an adult child and not really want to get held. I guess that must be something that you've found, right? Because there's
Right.
already like a how do you encourage them or would you push them?
Um, if the question is about touch, I kind of heard it a little different. Like,
Okay.
how do you begin? Let me answer it in three ways.
Hmm.
Um, if you're starting with a young adult child, if this is perhaps a parent or family member asking about someone who's disconnected, detached, angry, committed to the way they're going, and at odds with the parents, then I would want to meet with the parents, myself or others, and coach the parents on being able to create the opportunity to connect, and for the child, for the adult child,
Mm,
the emphasis wouldn't be on holding. We wouldn't be starting in a place like that. This is if we're talking about from the very beginning, how to reconnect with my alienated child.
mm,
Um, I would begin with coaching the parents and creating opportunities to reattach there, leading to a family healing session. The second way I want to answer that is if we're talking about a commitment to a family session and one child doesn't want to participate, right? I have had sessions where young people who have wounds specifically with mom and dad had a session just them and mom and dad, and the siblings weren't involved. But it's always ideal and better for everyone to be involved. And what happens if I have this child that doesn't want to participate? If the parent or a sibling who's invested and committed reaches out to them and asks them, can you do it for me? Can you do it for the family? You don't have to participate, even you can just come and watch. That's exactly what happened to David. That's why he came, not for himself. And the experience created the opportunity for him to unload things he was carrying. So ask them to do it for the family, or for you as a parent, or sibling. And the third issue, we don't do confrontational holding,
mm,
as an initial protocol. In every sharing, I won't express detail, but there is a gentle means of establishing physical contact when parent is sharing with child.
mm,
And we go as far as they're willing and able, and the facilitator feels what's right, because there's a powerful emotional grounding effect of physical
mm,
touch. It's very powerful, but it's gentle in the protocol. And if it evolves to where the child is, their holding is needed and necessary, we'll do that either uh, together with everyone or privately for a period of time. So it's more gently introduced and firmly employed when according to the situation.
great. So it looks like, especially for this person, that speaking to yourself and that contact first with how to approach the subject with an adult child is better to see the communication, whereas maybe the family healing session is maybe for a child who lives with the parent, I guess, in a sense, right? It's kind of thought of it in that model, rather than maybe somebody who's 25, 30 and has embraced, say, the lifestyle, and you're trying to um, bring them back. So,
Actually, no, it's extremely appropriate. Also, in a situation where the adult child has chosen a life, a path, values, has identified with a path that is at odds with the parents. And the
Mm.
goal is reattachment. The goal is not fixing or changing anybody. The goal
Mhm.
is creating healthy attachment, which then will impact, as it did with Farid, when there was a genuine sense of attachment, and when shame had been removed and anxiety had been minimized, then he was more open to reflect on where he was at. In fact, he sent a friend to work with me because the friend was same-sex attracted and hiding his life from his parents, right? And he was at odds with his parents. And actually, once we worked with the parents to understand how they could approach and relate to their child without judgment, without blame, without criticism, without making it about them. How could you do this to me? What is the family going to think? And parents dealing with their own shame and fear. When we were able to work through those things, then this friend came to realize, oh my gosh, I thought I was fighting my parents. Now I realize, when that calmed down, my battle is with myself. This is not what I want. And he has since changed the direction of his life and is pursuing his heterosexual potential in therapy. So, and that was when the situation of the family became less stressful. So I'm not promising, and it doesn't work if parents are like, maybe if we hold a family healing session, I can still make my kids straight. That kind of mindset is not going to be effective. But yeah, I have some experiences, and Richard has dozens of experiences of alienated kids who came to a session, and I will be an advocate for that child. I'm not going to be standing with the parents to change the child's lifestyle. I'm going to be working with the parents to, if you can't love the child you have as they are, then there's no, there's a saying, people don't care what you know. No, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Mm.
When the child feels accepted, and the child needs to feel, the adult child needs to know, I'm loved and valued as I am, not if I change I'll be loved, if I fix myself. That So it's a profound emotional journey for parents and children. And the facilitator usually is a strong advocate for the problem child, so to speak. But it's never, the session is never focused on one person's situation. It's the family dynamic as a whole. I don't know if that answers some of the
Yeah,
questions.
that answers it very well. Thank you so much for that. So we have I'll go back to um, uh, we've got somebody who's raising the hand. Just make sure that if you do want to do this, your name will be shown and it will be recorded and it would be on YouTube. So if that's okay with you, I'm gonna give you the mic.
Hello, Ali and Philip. It was really, really nice seeing Philip today. Um, I want to say that we did the family healing session with Philip, and it was life-changing for us. We were skeptical at the beginning, so we were like, we don't think this is going to work. Um, and we didn't have, of course, immediate results, but as Richard and Philip both said to us, it flushes the toilet. And yes, it did. It flushed a lot of emotions. I was able, after that, to look in my son's eyes and love him unconditionally. Um, I can say that we worked with Philip for a long time. My son's still working with Philip, and I can say that he is a very warm therapist. He's like a dad. He's very kind. My son now is really doing so well. And I needed to say this. I needed to come and talk here because I really know how much Philip can be helpful to any family that is struggling. He can really help you in loving your child unconditionally, even if you don't agree with what you're doing. I would say, like, I'm not trying to, but what I'm trying to do is because it helped me, it helped my family, it helped us, it helped my son too. Now, when I see where my son is, and I never expected it, and he never expected it either, I would say that this would be very, very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sister Hala. And um, again, this is firsthand, uh, fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing and the courage to also share, Sister Hala, so openly what happened, and that a lot of parents are unsure and they're like, should I or should I not? And um, the fantastic work and belief that you put in and you continue to do so. Thank you so much. Philippe, would you like to respond? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I really would. First of all, I'm overwhelmed and it was unexpected, and I appreciate Hala so much. But I have to say that the unfortunate reality, and you can ask Richard Cohen, you can ask Hilda Weeman, those who do this work, that the unfortunate reality is that the largest majority of parents really are coming to the therapist or facilitator with the idea of, please fix my broken child, and then everything will be ready. The challenge for parents of looking within themselves, of overcoming the parts of themselves that feel ashamed of their child's situation, that want to make it about themselves. And Hala and her husband were never like that. But the thing I want to validate about Hala and Abdul was their willingness to invest and to work and to do their own work and to reflect on their past and to look at their own. I just was, and also I wish I could tell you their son's story today, because it's a long and complicated journey. But the place that this young man is at and what he's discovering recently, okay, I'm just going to say this one thing. Okay, recently in a session, he said, I'm feeling this feelings toward this particular girl. Is
Wow.
that real? Can I believe that? Is that real? Or is that just, but that's just this, and I'm not selling that either. If you start with the goal of this is going to make somebody do what I want them to do, it's difficult to create a real, genuine, unconditional acceptance and love. But I so appreciate the willingness of Hala and her husband to roll up their sleeves, and I know all of the challenges that they went through. So I'm really grateful that she had the courage and desire to share her experience. I also want to say that there are a number of associates that I am working with and that have the ability, including female therapists as well, if someone feels more comfortable, that are well trained in working with parents. So people don't have to reach out to me if they want to work as parents. If they find their child at a distance and they find big barriers and they want to find the way to break those barriers down and create, a healthier, more loving connection, I have a number of people that I could refer them to besides myself.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Sister Hala, for that share. Um, in what you've described, and we see it so often, the problem child, like you said, right? That's the problem. That's what we're here to fix. And how do parents take it when they realize that no, that's not what we're solving here? We're solving the disconnect, right, or the communication barrier, or why this situation is here in the first place. How do parents react from that realization that you're not here to fix the child, but you're here to improve the relationship?
Right. It depends on the person. It depends on their consciousness. It depends on how healthy or unhealthy their relationships are, how they approach their family. I'll give you a simple example is that I told you the story of David,
Mm,
who also the name has been changed, but this is a real situation. And during the family healing session, um, the dad came to me and pulled me aside and said, I really object to what you're doing. I think, letting the kids speak the way they're speaking to me, and no one's screaming at him, but when they're sharing their feelings, he said, I think it undermines my authority as a father, right? And that was, of course, the way he'd been raised. um, the father particularly had an alcoholic dad that he had a very broken relationship with, never had a chance to heal that relationship before his father died, and had a lot of his own issues, right? But at that time, he was so uncomfortable with being made to be vulnerable to his kids. And it was a difficult journey for him. But in the end, his son didn't lose respect. As I said, there's a factory setting inside every child. We want to understand, we want to connect, we want to trust and believe in. Now, of course, maybe many of us, as we grow up, we recognize my parents, especially if they've reached an older age and they are in a kind of comfort zone and in the things they're used to. I may never be able to get from them
mm,
the things that my heart needs,
yeah,
but I can learn to give those to myself, which is the essence of inner child work. I can, I always tell my clients, you have three fathers that you need to cultivate a relationship with. One is your inner parent, your ability to love and validate your own inner child. Two is mentors, like second chance fathers. You can get that kind of energy and encouragement. And that's why the journey into manhood is one of the most powerful experiences, because you automatically now are connected to a network of not only weekend mentors, but potential long-term support as well. And the third one is your divine and absolute parent. And you don't need a spiritual life to heal your heart. But if you have a spiritual life that produces not just shame or blame or inadequacy or fear, but if there is a sense of validation and a sense of worthiness and a sense of love and compassion and embrace, right? Then that is a powerful tool for healing.
beautiful. That was said so well, and um, uh, the need for I think that father hunger is or that mother hunger is so prevalent in our work, and knowing that God, I love what you said about the three, that God has provided um, alternatives. It's not that, this concept that I'm eternally broken or I'm eternally can't fix this devoid, and I can't go back. I'm, this identity driven politics, which kind of says, no, I'm this, I'm immovable, unchangeable, unhelpable, and yeah, like nothing's going to change. And uh, a lot of negativity, which we find a lot of these clients in, where they're thinking, I've tried everything now, that kind
Yeah,
of hopelessness. And um, and as I loved your layers approach, because your the family healing session is peels many layers, where maybe the therapy, maybe slowly you're peeling the layers in therapy, right? But when you're face to face and you're doing this and you're um in one to one, you only have this view of the client, but you don't have the view of the whole family. It's not systemic. And when you have the whole full view and you're doing these processes in real time, you're effectively creating a memory which is challenging past traumatic memories. You're creating an experience which is challenging past pain. And just the um, presence of that memory, or the realization that has happened, or realization that at least there's a willingness from these parties to come together, regardless of what the outcome might be, is a healthy step. That we've chosen for mediation to come to place. We've realized that um, we can't do this on our own, and that we need that support. And as sister Hala, and again, I did not know she was going to share, and it was lovely of her to do that. um, Said she was unsure at the start, but when she did the session, she was like, wow, okay, this is really, really helpful. And I want to double down on that to say that um, um, sometimes that you need that. You can tell things to a stranger. It's easier telling things to a stranger than telling it to a loved one. And I think having that um, someone there, which is impartial and has got your back, is something which is very, very useful. So if you are a parent and you are listening to this, then please, you are thinking of having a family healing session, then please do consider and approach. Um, how is it that they can reach you, Philip, if um, through other means, if people wanted to contact you either by email or
I would
um,
think exactly as you have me listed and available on the Strong Support website as a
yeah,
resource. Then they can email me. I don't know if my WhatsApp is there. I'd be willing for you to put my WhatsApp contact up
fantastic.
there as well.
Yeah.
But you can reach me through Strong Support easily.
Mhm.
And yeah, by email is probably best. By WhatsApp is also fine. And always the first step would be an initial consultation. That's not something we worry about charging for. It's an opportunity to understand the situation,
Mhm.
to see what possibilities are there. Perhaps, a family healing session is the best next step, perhaps not. Perhaps I would recommend personal therapy, perhaps not. Perhaps I would want to work with you, or perhaps we would look at the situation and the contingencies and the needs and the presenting issues and figure out the best way forward. And I would just be in a position of supporting those parents or individuals who want to, know how to work with their situation. That would be the best way. You can reach me through Strong Support. That works best, don't you think, Ali?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're a parent and you're wondering how is it going to help, have any more questions, I'm sure as much as I'll be able to answer, I can help. I can, as Philippe is reminded, of course, his details are on our website, which are available there. You can go to strongsupport.co.uk/counselors. You can see the list there. Any closing remarks, Philip, you wanted to add that maybe we didn't get time to cover?
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. The first is something to let parents know if there are deep traumas in the situation. Um, the only issues that wouldn't be uh, recommended to be laid on the table in the midst of a family healing session would be infidelity issues and sexual abuse issues. But I have held family healing sessions where the individuals involved in abusive experience, the family members, had a separate prior session with a sexual trauma, abuse trauma specialist. And we integrated that experience into the family healing session, or with the family healing session, because those issues on the table for the whole family would obviously not be ideal.
Yes.
And other than that, it's really good to get some skeletons out of the closet, including ancestral skeletons, historical skeletons. It might not be the traditional way, but it really, because whether they consciously know it or not, children know and feel these things. The issues that are being hidden, the skeletons that are kept in the closet, the past experience of parents that they may feel painful to talk about. It's very powerful when this stuff comes to the fore as well. And just my final comment is, I am still dumbfounded, amazed in this politically correct society, with all of the effort to make the case that if you feel this, it's who you are, it's inborn, it's genetic. And then all the research says, no, it's not genetic. You can't find it in someone's genes. There's no gene for, there are areas of the genome involved. I mean, all of this research has been done. So, okay, let's look at hormones. Let's look at brain. And the constant effort, when it's understood that it's complex, it's not simple. There are ancestral factors, there are other factors, but the primary, it's understood and validated scientifically, no matter how much people like to throw out, well, the science says, the science is in that the majority of what shapes the heart is environmental, experiential, and nurture more than nature. There are nature elements, of course, but the thing that dumbfounds me is why people don't look into the understanding of attachment theory, because our childhood experiences form who we're attracted to in every kind of relationship, the patterns we establish, how, who we feel comfortable with, why good girls are attracted to bad boys, why sensitive and gentle men will be attracted to someone that abuses or hurts or takes advantage of them. All of these patterns, it's not an SSA issue, it's a human issue. It's the reality of our relationships and experiences, and it's really worth looking at. I hope that's relevant. I don't know.
That's such a good way to put it, that a lot of this work, we always say SSA is a symptom, it's not the cause, right? So, and that the core hurt is the gender identity detachment, or like you said, defensive detachment, or the initial wound that you were somehow different, or the othering, and it's that core detachment that we're trying to put in, and um, whatever emerges from that is just a byproduct from offering that that opportunity to reattach, effectively what you're providing, an opportunity to, in a safe environment, to reattach, to look at the pain, but to look at the love that exists in that relationship as well, and an intense session to take that forward, which is has been very, very remarkable, and very, very successful. And yeah, I think you said it absolutely beautifully. Um, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Strong Support, on behalf of the community. Um, you heard it firsthand in the webinar, for the work that you've been doing, and for like I said, much longer than I have, long number of years with Richard Cohen in developing this technique, and reaching out to families internationally, and doing this work. And I pray with sincerity that God blesses you, God blesses your work, and He continues to bless you in this work, which often is misunderstood. But we, the people who see the value of it, really recognize it. And thank you again so much for dedicating your time today, for this. And I'm definitely gonna have a myself look at the protocol. See, it's very, very interesting. Have a look at it. And yes, similarly to the audience, if you're interested, don't feel shy. Please do ask. And uh, bless your family, Philip, as well. You're a true father figure to you, for your family, for your community that you've built as a pastor, so many lives that you've touched. And I pray that God continues to bless you, that you live your mission, and you're able to share your truth with people.
Thank you, Ali. I have tremendous respect, and I'm going to grab all those available spaces in Egypt with you for my clients. I'm going to have all of them try to take advantage, because I so appreciate the work you do, the spirit you have, and the presence that you provide. I really appreciated this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Philippe. God bless.